Hi, and welcome to How to Use an Article. In this web series, we are going to go over how to recognize what types of articles you will be using in your research, what you'll use them for, and finally, how to read a scholarly article, because you aren't actually reading them from beginning to end like you would a book. To start out with, we're going to discuss the different types of articles. First up, one of the downloads you can get in this module discusses what each type of periodical is, and a periodical is simply something that is published periodically. The alternative would be a monograph, so what you would think of as a book. Uh, there are various types of periodicals, so we're going to look at a few of them. The first one, we've all seen newspaper articles. The reason I pull it up online is because I assume most of the time you're actually going to be Googling or using one of the databases to find your information, and this is what will come up. This is from the New York Times. You can generally tell a newspaper because it will have a place in the name somewhere. It should have an author's byline, but you'll notice it doesn't tell you the author's credentials. It doesn't tell you if this author is just a journalist or if she's a scholar in this field. Newspapers are really interesting to have for an understanding of what's happening, what's some current, very current event. You know, you're not going to find a scholarly article that was written about something that, for me, happened 2 weeks ago. So a newspaper article is going to help with something like that. There are also magazine articles. You will almost never want to cite a magazine article. Magazine articles are written for the general public, but they're written for a national audience. Just like newspapers, magazines are written to sell advertising space, essentially, to get people to click on articles, to get people to buy the magazine and look at it. You'll notice a lot of pictures. You'll notice the comment section at the bottom. Never read the comment section at the bottom if you want to have a self-esteem later on. The next level of research is going to come from what's known as a trade publication. This is something that the National Education Association put out. It is written specifically for educators. It's written for people who are actually practicing that trade. And you'll find trade publications in almost any field. If you look at something like Discover Magazine, that is a good example of more of a trade publication. It's written for beyond the general public, but it is still not written for a scholar. This is good for opinion of people in your field. It's also good to have an idea of what's going on in your field that you can get more information about. What you'll be spending most of your time with is going to be scholarly research. You are going to want to cite this almost entirely. Something akin to 90% of your citations should be coming from these scholarly sources. There are some ways that you can look for, that you can recognize scholarly sources in the types of periodicals handouts. But the final type of article I consider, or that I've listed in here, is a dissertation. Now I put it in here because dissertations will come up when you do searches for scholarly articles in the library's databases. It is not going to be the same thing as a peer-reviewed article, and you can see some of the distinctions again in the handout. I just wanted to point out that these will come up. A really good way of telling that you're looking at a dissertation instead of an article is page length. Dissertations typically are at least 100 pages long, whereas scholarly articles are typically between 7 and 20 pages long. Now let's look at a few articles that will come up when I do a database search. When I do a search, I want to click primarily on scholarly articles. Now I can come over here and look at the limiter, but I want to look in this section to get ideas as well, because even academic journals will have different types of articles, such as editorials, and you don't necessarily want an editorial You'll also notice that often trade publications get lumped in with scholarly or peer-reviewed journals, so just a heads up about that. The things that I look for a quick ID to see if something might be scholarly. I look for the title. That's what's in italics in every single one of these. I can get an idea of the scope of the article, but I can also get an idea if it's scholarly or not. I know Time, I know The Nation, I know neither of these is going to be scholarly. These are both magazines. This one is a law journal. Now, if you're looking for something from a legal perspective, this may be helpful. This one is a journal of research in music education. So whatever I find in italics is the name of the publication. When I see the word journal, that is a really good indicator that I've got a scholarly journal. But you're not always going to see the word journal in there. So something else that I look for is the number of pages that an article is. This one is 12 pages. This one is 26 pages. This one is an eighth of a page. A scholarly journal, because it is typically over 8 pages long, I'm not going to go for any of these. This one's 3 pages long. Education, that's going to be a trade publication. The next thing I want to look for is the number of authors. If you see more than one author, as you do here and as you do here, if you see more than one author, as you do here, that's a decent indication that you're looking at something that's scholarly. If you see 5 or 6 authors, that is generally a dead giveaway that something is a scholarly source. Finally, I want to look at the title, which is the big blue chunk in here. If it sounds fun, if it sounds interesting, if it sounds like something that you would actually want to click on, it's probably a magazine article. So think about something that shows up in your Facebook feed, something that we would call clickbait. If it makes you want to click on it, there's a good chance that it is not scholarly. If you are reading something that is exactly what you think it should be, it's a very descriptive title, that is a good instance that it's probably going to be scholarly or peer-reviewed.